All right, let's talk about something that gets to pretty much all of us at some point, test anxiety. We're going to break down what it is and, more importantly, what you can actually do about it. We've got a whole guide to help you stay calm and focused. Okay, let's dive right in.
So picture this. You've studied for weeks. You absolutely know the material. But the second that test paper lands on your desk, your mind just goes completely blank. Poof, gone. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, trust me, you are not alone. That feeling has a name, and we're about to pull back the curtain on it.
Here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get a handle on what test anxiety actually is. Then, we'll get into the practical stuff, your game plan for before, during, and even after the test. And finally, we'll zoom out and put it all in perspective.
Okay, first things first. You can't really conquer something until you understand it, right? So what exactly is test anxiety, and where in the world does it come from?
So, at its core, test anxiety is this really intense mix of stress and, flat-out fear that can seriously sabotage your ability to show what you know. It can hit you before, during, or even after an exam, and it's usually tied to things like a fear of failure, feeling immense pressure to be perfect, or just not feeling confident in how you prepared. And here's the thing, test anxiety isn't just one thing. It's kind of like a three-pronged attack. You might feel it physically, maybe a headache, your heart starts racing, or you feel nauseous. That physical stress then triggers the emotional side, things like fear, dread, or just feeling helpless. And what happens then? Well, it affects your behavior. You might start procrastinating or find it impossible to concentrate. See how it works? Each part just feeds the others, creating this nasty cycle that can be really tough to break. Okay, now this might sound a little weird, but stick with me. What if I told you that a little bit of stress could actually be your secret weapon for acing an exam?
Yeah, there's actually a name for it, eustress. You can just think of it as good stress. It's the kind that actually motivates you, sharpens your focus, and gives you that little jolt of energy you need. So the goal isn't to get rid of stress completely, it's to find that perfect amount. So what does that look like? Well,
this curve explains it perfectly. Check it out. Way over on the left, with too little stress, we're kind of bored, unmotivated, and our performance is low. But as the stress starts to build, follow that line up, we get energized, focused, and we hit our peak performance. That whole middle section, that's eustress. But if the stress keeps climbing, we crash and burn into fatigue and anxiety. Our goal is to live in that sweet spot right at the top of the curve.
So, the million-dollar question is, how do we find that performance sweet spot? Well, it all starts long before you ever set foot in that exam room. Let's talk about the pre-exam game plan. This is how you win the battle before it even begins.
look, a solid plan is your absolute best defense against anxiety. It all starts with step 1, get organized. The minute you get your syllabus, put those exam dates in your calendar. No surprises. Step 2, study smart. This means no more all-night cram sessions. Start weeks in advance. Our brains actually need sleep to process and store information, so spreading it out is way more effective. Which brings us to step 3, practice. Find old quizzes or practice exams and take them under timed conditions. This does 2 things. It shows you what you don't know, and it makes the real test feel way less scary. And finally, step 4, and please don't skip this one, self-care. I'm serious. Getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep is not a luxury. It's a core part of studying. A brain that's rested and fed is a brain that can perform.
Okay, you've prepared, you're ready. But now you're in the room, the clock is ticking, and you feel that old wave of panic starting to creep in. What do you do right now? Here's your toolkit for the heat of the moment.
These are your emergency tools. First, go for the low-hanging fruit. Knock out the questions you're confident about to build momentum. If you feel that panic rising, use mindful breathing. Just close your eyes, take a few slow, deep breaths. It actually calms your nervous system down. If things get really bad, hit the reset button. Recenter. Stop what you're doing, close your eyes, and just count to 10. It gives your brain a quick reboot. And hey, don't underestimate visualizing success. Genuinely picture yourself handing in that test feeling good about it.
Does that little voice sound familiar? I'm gonna fail. I can't do this. That negative self-talk is one of the biggest fuels for the fire of test anxiety. But the good news is, you can fight back.
The trick is to have your counterattack ready to go. The second that negative thought pops into your head, you replace it with one of these. You remind yourself, I am prepared for this. I do know this material. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about reminding your anxious brain of the reality of the work you've put in.
It's about perspective.
Okay, now for a really cool physical hack. It turns out that something as simple as how you sit can actually change how you feel and how you perform during a test. It's a tiny change with a surprisingly big impact.
It's fascinating, really. Research shows that when we slouch over, we're much more likely to feel helpless and give up on tough problems. But just by sitting up straight, you can actually increase your self-esteem and boost your confidence. So during the test, remember this little trick. Sit like you own the place. Shoulders back, head up. Your body can literally help convince your mind that you've got this.
The test is over. You walk out of the room. But for so many of us, the anxiety doesn't just stop there, right? Now comes the worrying, the replaying every question, the what-ifs. Let's talk about the post-test playbook and how you can turn this phase into a chance to actually grow.
After a test, it is so crucial to focus your energy in the right place. You can't change the grade you just got. You can't go back and fix the questions you got wrong. Obsessing over it is just a dead end. But what you can control is how you're going to get ready for the next one and how you learn from this experience. The whole goal is to shift your mindset from regret to action.
So here are some healthy habits. First, and this is non-negotiable, reward yourself. You worked hard. Celebrate that. Then, instead of just dwelling on what you think you got wrong, go find out for sure. Seek feedback. And then analyze your own process. What study habits worked? What didn't? This turns every single test, good or bad, into a valuable learning opportunity. And finally, let's zoom all the way out. Because while all these strategies are incredibly helpful, it's also really important to remember the role a single test plays, or maybe more importantly, doesn't play, in your life.
Look, everything we've talked about can make a huge difference in managing typical test anxiety. But sometimes that anxiety can be more persistent, more severe, and it can affect a lot more than just your exams. And it's really important to be able to recognize when that's happening.
If anxiety just feels like a constant companion in your life, if it's making it hard to concentrate or just get through your day, that's a sign that it might be time to talk to someone. There is absolutely zero shame in seeking support. Your school's counseling services or another health professional can give you tools to help you manage these feelings on a much deeper level.
And I want to end on this, because if you take away only one thing, let it be this. An exam is just a snapshot. That's all it is. It's a snapshot of your understanding on a particular day. It is not, and never will be, a measure of your value or your intelligence. So learn from it, grow from it, and then let it go. The real question isn't what grade you got, but what you choose to do next.